I was thinking tonight could be a good night for a sex night, possibly.
Ooh. It's an interesting idea, but, Thursdays.
How's the new opera coming along?
Good, great,
Yes.
great.
We had discussed seeing a first draft of the score in 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Is that still all right?
I'm suffering from a temporary blockage at the moment. No, turn it back on. G flat.
My name is Andy Ortiz, and I am here with TheWrap. Let's dive into She Came to Me. Rebecca, I want to start with you first. There are so many elements here. It's like one of those old jokes or riddles that's like a composer, a therapist, and a tugboat captain walk into a movie. And then like you throw opera on top of that. And there's so much going on. So forgive me for going broad, forgive me for the pun, but like, how did She Came to Me come to you?
Well, She Came to Me over a long period of time, I will say. It was a slow boil because it had to marinate, and there were various story strands that came at different times. The story strand of the Peter Dinklage character and the Marisa Tomei character was sort of the first, and I had written a story called She Came to Me, which is in a collection called Total, which was recently published, and that story had been written some years ago, and it just stuck with me. So then I had the young kids idea, and then, and that boiled away. And then the Patricia idea came to me, the idea of this woman who's a therapist in a very secular line of work, taking care of everyone around her, and has this kind of mystical element to her that ends up really kind of wreaking havoc in her life. And I ended up sort of thinking of the form as almost like a challah bread that has 3 braids, like a braided, or an Easter bread, depending on your how you look at things, but a braided form, and finding how to make the stories speak to each other was the big challenge.
It spoke to each other very well. I loved it's just one of those things that like I explained this movie to people that I was doing this interview, and they're like, I'm sorry, what? There's opera in it too? And I was like, yeah, it's great. I also want to ask, obviously you have just an embarrassment of riches in your core 3 cast. You've got the lovely Anne Hathaway here. You've got Marisa Tomei, Peter Dinklage, can't forget Brian Darcy James. I have to imagine that makes your job as a director easier. So just talk to me about directing this trio. Do you just like sit down and you're like, go, well, where it's probably great, just go? How do you do that?
You know what? One of the most important things as a director is to know when to shut up and not to talk, and to only talk when it's useful. And that with these people is not that often. It's like you're working with some of the greatest actors alive, and so you really try to be present and useful in the way each of them needs, and not more so. But a lot of the work that we did, certainly Annie and I, had to do was in pre-production and talking about details, because Annie's a very detail-oriented actor. And so what are the details that add up to create this character, and how is she, so many of her layers as a person, they shouldn't go together, but they do. And how do you create a rounded out person that comes to such an extreme point?
I hadn't thought about it at the time, but it sort of was like we were building Patricia as like a human chutes and ladders. That game where like things run laterally, but then they're also, you have to find the connection points for the verticals.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, hi everybody, nerd over here.
No, that totally makes sense. Like it's just a 3-dimensional everybody has things about them that are not what you expect.
So true.
I don't want to call it a rigidity, because like but there's like this compulsiveness to her, right? There's this way that she wants to do things. And also she's trying to figure out who she is and letting her real self come through. How, for you as an actress, do you play that? I mean, because obviously in a character, you want to be able to play, you want to be able to expand. But if there is this compulsiveness to her, how do you kind of get in her brain that way?
I feel like I'm a very lucky person in that I've known many compulsive people in my life and found them quite charming. So, so I think it's important to remember that we're all a lot of things all at the same time. And sometimes the volume on certain aspects of ourselves gets turned up, and maybe it's an aspect of ourselves that requires, I don't know, a little bit of grace. That doesn't mean that we've lost our worth. It doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with us. It doesn't mean, I sound like Patricia right now. It doesn't mean anything except that you're a human being. And so the thing about Patricia is she has the misunderstanding that she's in control. And I think a lot of people relate to that. Like maybe we
Me.
all.
It's me. I relate to that.
And the idea is if I can just get through this day and line this, and up, everything's going to be fine and the world won't end. And it's just that last sentence that's a little bit tricky. And the thing that
Right.
you just want to say to someone like her is, you know, everything's going to be okay. You're going to be fine. And I don't think that she ever had a chance to fly her freak flag. And so part of what happens in this movie, because it's an ensemble film, is that it's Patricia kind of revealing who she really is and what she really wants.
Literally, when I say it's me, I relate to that. Literally in therapy right now, we are working on like what is in my control, what is out of my control. It is a struggle. So I felt it very deeply.
You're not alone. And so you're not alone in that struggle. And that's one of the things that I love about movies like this in particular, because I need movies like this. And especially when I was growing up trying to make sense of all the different parts of myself, a movie where I could see an actual human being up there on screen, let alone several, let alone beautifully woven together in a romantic operatic way. I mean, movies like this, especially growing up, made me feel so seen and so excited in my own way about being a human being.
Well, you mentioned that it was an ensemble movie. Of course it is. Unfortunately, for me at least, you only have this one scene with Marisa Tomei. I would have loved more. Rebecca, bone to pick with you there, but it's fine. But I'm curious, and when you're doing that scene with Marisa, is there any little part of you that's like, maybe I flub a few takes, maybe I prolong my time working with Marisa? Tell me, is there any part of you that considered that?
We were an independent film and our producer's dog plays the dog, and one of our producers during a rainstorm was out there with paper towels wiping down the craft service table. So as much as I would have loved to have flubbed lines with Marisa, to have had more time with her, we just couldn't afford it. Now, the good news was I literally couldn't think around her because I'm such a fan. So I
Right.
probably did flub lines while trying to be respectful of the fact that, like I said, we were an independent film and you really do have to wrap your days on time.
Absolutely. Rebecca, I want to come back to you and I want to kind of home in on something that Anne was talking about, that these are people. They're just trying to figure out their lives. And what it really stuck with me is there's this feeling or this kind of surface level thing of like they're all having a breakdown of sorts, right? Like they're all going through something. But at the end of the day, that breakdown leads them to just being happy. Like they're really just trying to figure out what true happiness looks like for them, whether it's becoming a nun, whether it's leaving their wife and marrying a tugboat captain. I have to imagine that's intentional. So why was that aspect important for you?
I think sometimes your unconscious just breaks through and tells you what you need, you know? And sometimes that looks like a breakdown. Sometimes it looks almost like a breakdown. But I think that when people are very tightly screwed in to a life that they think has to be theirs, sometimes there's an explosion. And I think that it's important to remind people that it's never too late to pivot, to really honor them, their true selves, or what they've evolved into, you know? And I think it's also important that one of the things that was so important about having these really great actors is that everything they're going through is very real. Their sweat is real, their tears are real, it's all for real, and you feel very much like you're opening a door and looking into their private lives. But at the same time, there's this kind of operatic quality about the movie, or almost like it's like a big souffle, you know? So it's that lightness, but at the same time, that reality of emotion that was important.
And may I add something? I think
Of
it's
course.
really important, as you know, as we all know, the world is constantly speeding up and there's constantly more information coming at us. And, you know, there's a lot going on all the time, in addition to life just being life, which has been since, you know, kind of day one of the human species. I think it's really important for us to keep telling ourselves, like, am I having a breakdown or am I having a breakthrough? I think the thing that makes the difference between the two, because they look exactly the same, the thing that makes the difference is love, and is hope. And it's really, I think there's a lot of reasons, at least we're told that there's a lot of reasons to despair right now. And one of the things that I love about this movie is that I feel like it says, look what a little bit of love, hope, and grace can do. To very, very, very human beings having breakdowns which maybe lead to breakthroughs.
And I want to finish off with you, because one thing I want to say that I just love and respect about your career is, for as much as you tell these beautiful stories, I know I got serious very quickly, but this is going to be good. for as much as you tell these beautiful stories, I feel like you've also really taken advantage of like the play side of acting, right? You've been a princess and then a queen, and you've been like a superhero villain, and you've been an astronaut and a bird. You've been all of these very fun things. When you're taking on new projects at this point, you've done so many things. What are you still looking for?
Oh, what a fantastic question. I know this sounds maybe disingenuous, but it is genuine, but it is really how I feel. I feel like I'm just getting started. No,
I love that.
I did not go to an acting school. I didn't audition for any, so I didn't get rejected from any, but I also like my path to feeling my path to my craft, I guess, has been through the workplace. And I very, very, very consciously, with the help of my amazing, amazing team, including my manager, who I've been with since I was 16 years old, have wanted to, the MO has always been choose the most interesting parts with the best directors that'll have you. And in that way, you will expand your range. You will learn how a set works. You will, you'll just become a flexible, nimble, imaginative, hopefully free actor. And this experience was so essential to that. Yeah, so I can't help but think that like everything, there's everything left to do.
I love it, and I want
Thank you
to
for that
do
question.
everything.
That's so lovely. It's such an amazing question, and I kind of teared up a little bit. So thank you very much.
Well, then I'm going to leave on this high note. This is my win for the rest of the week. Rebecca and Anne, thank you so very much for taking the time today. I truly appreciate you both. And, you know, I've been a fan of you forever. I just thank you both. You're wonderful. Have a great rest of your day and week and life.
Thank you very much.